The Newsroom, the last quarter of the show, of the segment Newsroom. And gentlemen, the referendum has brought out, some would argue, the worst in our politics, and it's divisive. It's trickling down to now what we're calling intolerance, and we've seen it in different parts of the country. But Prof, I'll start with you. How does the media balance being the medium that is used to communicate these messages, the utterances, the actions by these politicians? We're the ones taking it to the people. And then at the same time, come back and say, this what you're doing is wrong. You shouldn't be doing it. It's dividing the people. How do you balance that out?
And it's just looking at the role of the media, and I think Joe made reference to it earlier on when he talked about providing a forum where the debate takes place. I mean, a media scholar called it the marketplace of ideas. So here is a place, I mean, basically, the media has to make it possible for the two sides, whether you're talking about the COG and on the one side, I mean, the Jubilee on the other, CORD on the other side, to be able to bring their ideas to the marketplace for the public accessing that platform, to be able to access that information. That's a part of the task. But there's a second part of it, of media as watchdog, where they're beginning to look at and say, hey, look, here in this case or the other, and this is where the media will be able to point critical analysis to specific issues. So I think you cannot, in enhancing the freedom of expression, of course with responsibility, you cannot keep off some of the ideas from this market, so to speak, but at the same time point out where you think there's some responsibility taking place, so that there's a little bit of sobriety in terms of how the arguments are being shaped and what is being said. Mwaura?
Well, I would say that when assemblies decided that we want to wait before we agree on this is the way we want to go in terms of referendum, of course, you guys lambasted us that we want to be bribed so that we get, you know, as much goodies as possible so that we go either way. But what we did, and what I wish you would have followed up, we set up a technical committee that now checks or wants to hear the views of the people, the proponents of the various referendum questions. And you would be amazed in the kind of responses we are getting behind the cameras and behind all these things. I mean, we had a discussion with the COG, and you know, we're waiting for the report, but you know, the way they were bringing out the issues of the referendum are quite very different from what they do in podium politics. And same as Okoa, because you met them a couple of days ago. We also have done that with we are remaining with the parliamentarians. And you listen to, you know, the chest stamping that is happening there, and when you put them in the round table and ask them, sure, what are the issues? And I've been pushing, let us get clearly what are the issues that you want us to go in this direction, or why we shouldn't go. They now dilute them, and you now see actually probably if these issues were raised and these issues were dealt with as a country without so much hullabaloo, I think we'd be moving forward. Joe is talking about the precarious situation that we are in. In countries like the US, the biggest threat to their nation is terrorism. And you can see the measures that they take to ensure that it's not going to bring them down. In Kenya, our biggest threat is politics. You know, I mean, and we need to take care of our politics right from the elections to, you know, the security around the big public figures. I mean, what happened in Kwale is not a light matter. You know, if something happened to the leader of opposition today, I mean, we would be in serious problems. So I think we need to look at keenly, even in terms of, and referendum is now a political question. How are we managing it? From the leadership to the media, and how is it going to be reported in a way that we don't break the country? And I think that is the reality we have as assemblies, and that's how we want it to go. Let us find out what are the critical issues that are going to take this country at least to stabilize it, because everything is fluid now, and is going to be fluid for a long time.
Although later Ron will tell us about the guns that now MCAs want. So are you focusing on the referendum, or, you know, guns and bodyguards?
That's an issue.
Joe?
Yeah, but I think there is a point to be made that some of the issues are themselves very polarizing. For example, I saw you yesterday discussing with the senator from Kiambu about this referendum thing, and the question, for example, of ethnic inclusion or exclusion, as the case may be. And that is, it is a real question to the extent that even the Constitution recognizes that some need for, it's phrased as, I think, the face of Kenya or something like that. But in our context, it is taboo to even talk about where people come from. I mean, you see how I said it, where people come from, you know. So how are you going to create a platform for that kind of discussion without someone saying, hey, you are causing divisions in the country? Because that is a real question. It is more like race relations in some countries, maybe like the US, where people know that there's a problem, but somehow discussing it is a big problem. It's going to break the country as it is put. So I think there is also that thin line that the media is walking, that on the one hand you want to bring out the issues, but there are some of those issues that many times people will say, hey, that's not what we want to talk about, and yet they are the real issues that are causing us problems. Most of the things that cause us problems are things we don't even talk about. People just whisper about them, but then they'll go and act on them.
Ohito?
Yes, one of the emerging issues, and the latest is this subject Joy is raising. It's called ethnic quotas, and I think for me that's a very valid argument. If you want to maintain one nation in peace, then we must take care of these ethnic quotas. If we don't, we'll still run into these problems of ethnicity, tribalism, and polarization that comes with it. And until we reach such a time that we agree, yes, this community A have this population, and if there are 10 ambassadorial positions, then we need to give them this quota, and that quota belongs to that particular community. Then we can strike a balance. It was done in Switzerland, where the French Swedes, the Italian Swedes, the German Swedes, and Switzerland is one of the most stable countries in the world. And I think those are very good lessons we can learn from. The mere fact that people are discussing referendum, either rubbishing it or engaged in rallies about it, shows you there are critical issues which should be addressed as a nation. The problem, which I think triggered all these debates and rallies, was that when the opposition said, let's negotiate, they were rubbish because of one individual or a few of them who feel they would be made irrelevant if there were negotiations on the table. So when they blocked them, they said, okay, there's option 2. Let's push the people to demand this. And now it's catching fire. The president talks about it in every other public function he gets to, the deputy president, all politicians who matter speak about referendum, and it tells you there are critical issues which must be addressed. And with figures, and I repeat, 4 out of 10 Kenyans living below poverty, living in less than 80 shillings a day, then it shows you this country deserves better leadership, better reorganization of policies, and how we do governance issues.
Okay. To the event, the kenning of the CORD leader, Raila Odinga, the media has covered different aspects of this, from the security, perhaps there's not enough security for the VIPs. There's been the element of, there were reports yesterday indicating that perhaps he was mentally ill. You know, to have done that, have all the issues been exhausted in as far as what this means, that particular incident?
I'm not even sure that we know what all the issues are. So it's more about a question of exploring them. Okay. But I think, I mean, two media platforms here, the mainstream media and then the social media. I'm probably less critical of the mainstream media, but I think the social media, and which of course is out, I mean, the way that the story was carried, I mean, sometimes with the glee, sometimes, you know, the usual
memes and all.
Names and all that that's taking place, which just makes it really a serious case here. And I think if we can be able to urge responsibility, I think too often when we talk about responsibility, we are training our guns on the mainstream media. But I think responsibility should also be focused on us as a nation. The individual bloggers, the individual who is writing their piece here, and of course, freedom of expression granted, but how we're exercising it, thinking about the bigger society, the bigger nation together. But overall, I think from the mainstream media, I think there's been fairly good coverage of it, and some of the angles to that reporting are coming through. But what you mentioned probably has not been emphasized as much as it has been. I mean, the question of the security of our VIPs, and let's even go further, it's not so much security of our VIPs in government, but the security of our VIPs who are not in government, because they're still VIPs even if they're not in government. And what happens to one of them could easily have a big impact on this, on our nation.
Sure.
And their security also needs to be taken into account. And I think maybe a much sharper torchlight ought to be directed towards that, so that we tend to see it as the responsibility of the state, of the government, to take care of our VIPs wherever they may be.
Ohito.
Very interesting. I decided to give mainstream media wide berth when it came to the Kwale incident, because there were very gripping anecdotes on social media. In fact, the gentleman who allegedly attacked Honorable Raila was referred to as leader of a terror gang called Kiboko Haram. And you see, guys had a field day, looking at the issues, both serious comments and light ones, taking the joke too far. But there's so many security breaches involving VIPs in recent past. The president rally in Migori was disrupted, and before even investigations were over, I accused the president. He had said he had forgiven those who heckled him and who hurled shoes towards him. I think he should have let it to police officers to investigate, and if anybody is found culpable, then they should face the law. But what happened in Kwale is worrying, because this guy with a cane strikes twice, thrice. He strikes Raila, he strikes the governor. And where were bodyguards? If he had, say, a more dangerous weapon, we would be talking of a crisis today. And that shows you how we have taken security of all VIPs and all Kenyans so lightly. So if they can strike Raila with this army of bodyguards, what happens to the ordinary Mwananchi on the streets?
Okay. Mwaura, I'll come to you, and maybe you can comment on that if you have any as we move on to this other story. As MCAs in the country, do you feel unfairly targeted by the media, or do you feel some of those utterances and positions that come from the MCAs are deserving of some of the coverage that goes when you talk about one of the MCAs that talked about loneliness allowance for the wives when MCAs travel, the expenses incurred on those foreign travels, training to use iPads as well, and now guns and bodyguards? Is it unfair, some of that coverage you get, do you think?
It's very unfair, to be very honest.
Based on what those issues have highlighted?
Because of those issues that you've highlighted. But let me gloss over about the security situation so that I'm clear with it. I think it was plainly a security breach, and we need to take it to the next level. Let us. I was hearing something yesterday, I think on BBC, that what the Swedish guys are doing now, they've brought in bomb detectors that will be put in the sewage system, because for you to construct a bomb, there has to be some combination that will run down the sink somehow, and as the drainage is running, they're able to detect something is happening. What I'm saying is that our security situation needs to be ahead of the game. That we lack. Now, coming back to issues of how we are represented, I think we are a bit when it comes to reporting, especially for county assemblies, there's this notion that these guys are just a greedy lot that we need to, show in very bad light. The issue when some member, a random one, we have over 2,000 members, somebody thinks he's a bit lonely and whatever, it becomes even my issue. Yeah. Now, when people look at me, they think I even need that allowance. And there are people who you get. Why don't we isolate that issue and look at it critically? when even the issues of security, I personally would not need. But when we were having our assemblies meeting the other day, the member from Peketoni, who is actually a person living with disability, was asking us, I am from this volatile area. I cannot even run, I cannot secure myself. Don't you think I really need security? And I'm of that area of Peketoni, Honorable Jomo. So you look at those issues. There's a member for Ruai in Nairobi who was attacked in his house, right? And the wife was chopped up and all that. So what I'm saying is that there are those issues, and generally there's need for us to be ahead of security. But where somebody feels that he needs an extra security, let us be on top of it. We need that advance. Security is not just standing beside me or walking around. It's just being ahead and thinking. Even after looking at the London bombing, look at the security situation and how they've taken it. It's almost impossible for you to be able to come up with a small perfume inside the tube. I mean, they look at all these issues. What do we do? Right? So for us, as assemblies, we feel that we are fairly antagonized because people are different. When Duale came up with this story in Bomet or wherever they were, in Narok, I didn't hear you saying it is all the MPs now. Look at how the MPs are talking, and when the governor is talking about something bad, you don't say all these governors, look at how they are saying. It becomes that.
But when this one MCA says that is what they want for all MCAs, then are you saying as media we need to have all these 2,000 MCAs in number and say, okay, these ones are the ones who support this position that they should be have their wives given loneliness allowance? Should it be the ones as the media?
But we have a leadership. There's a county assemblies forum.
So then shouldn't the MCAs focus such utterances that really have a huge impact on how MCAs are viewed to the core leadership and the spokespersons in the
It's true. But then again, if your camera is running somewhere in Kirinyaga and you pick it up and you take it directly to news, how do you never called the assembly because you have a functioning secretariat who would have been able to respond to that? I'll give you a good example. Today in your standard newspaper, page 35, look at it. You're talking about the issue of guns and all that, and you're talking about the county speakers. We are not even called the speakers forum, right? We only have 47 speakers and 2,000 members. So it's a county assemblies. Even the way you want us to be looked at, it's actually wrong, even the way you look at it.
Right.
So what you're saying is that dig deeper, do a bit of depth, and also try and see, because we have forum, we have a secretariat that is functioning, try and look at what are they saying. And that's what even when it came to the issues of foreign travel, we're trying now to coordinate and see if there's an issue, there's a place you can call and find out what is exactly happening in a far-flanked county or anywhere nearby.
Okay, our time is up. John, respond to that, yes.
Okay. My view is that, first of all, let's admit it, the MCAs are very many.
Yeah.
So there's no journalist who's going to follow all the 2,000 of them.
Right.
And so what is likely to happen is that whenever an issue arises, and most of the time it's going to be loneliness or somebody in a gun battle or something, or iPad training, Facebook and all of those things, those ones are going to be highlighted. And so there is a tendency to bunch people up when there are so many. You want to deal with smaller averages of that. So I think it is the duty also of the MCA leadership to then rein in people like that.
Right.
I would have expected them to say, no, we are not all asking for loneliness allowance. That is an isolated case. And we'll cover that. I mean, I don't think we will say,
but that's a case of an apology. I mean, when the story is already run, we are now coming back to say,
but we can't. No, but it's not like every little MCA story from there, like we'll go running looking for the leadership of the MC. It's not all the time. The MCAs also have their own minds. They don't have to get direction from the leadership to speak.
Precisely, and that's why you should bring it out as that person's viewpoint, not the whole membership.
We must end it there, unless perhaps MCAs could consider the police route. They have now streamlined communication to the IG and the two spokespersons.
No, we actually have said here that we have a secretariat that is running and functional here at Landmark Plaza opposite the Nairobi Hospital. And they are, of course, if you Google them up, you'll find them. If you want a position that is coherent from MCAs, following you.
Okay, Chege Mwaura, member of the County Assembly of Ngara Ward, Ageyo, managing editor KTN. We have David Ohito, digital editor here at the Standard Group, and Professor Levi Obonyo, who's Dean School of Communication at the Daystar University. Thank you all for joining us this morning on the Newsroom. Always a pleasure. And stay with us on Morning Express. When we come back, relationship expert Chris Hart will be joining me, and we're talking about the unmarried but marriageable type, the eligible ones. So there are those who are single that want to be married, but it's not happening. Why is it not happening? Why is it so hard to find this partner? And then there are those who just don't want to, and yet they meet the match. So what about that? We'll talk about that and more. Stay with us.